And welcome to Conservatives Talk.
And we probably have one of the best, if not the best episode we've done so far. We have a special guest, Josh Williams from the state of Ohio. He's running as a Republican candidate for State House seat, District 41.
Yes, and after we speak with Mr. Williams, we're going to discuss how it's come time for the Democrats to pay the piper.
And speaking of paying the piper, a Democratic sheriff openly admits on camera that he's getting ready to start an open witch hunt.
Yeah. And threats to democracy is now one of the top polling issues heading into the 2022 midterms.
And since we're talking about threats in the conspiracy corner, we're going to talk about something that all of us have probably been threatened with if you watch this show, and that's Facebook jail has got its life sentence.
And hopefully there's no parole. And welcome back to Conservatives Talk. My name's Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And as always, we want to remind everyone to make sure that they are liking and sharing all of the content that they run across on any of the platforms where we put out any of our content via social media, anything really. Make sure that you're also hitting the subscribe button on wherever you come across any of our content. That way you can stay up to date on anything that we are producing and putting out. So you never miss a thing, and you'll always be able to see Jamie's smiling, loving mug.
Love Justin's humor.
And while you're doing that, make sure you also go to conservativestalk.org and hit the sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and help us out with what you're able to. Our sponsors are really what drive us and help us to be able to where we've gone from the webcam stuck up against the wall to the kitchen table in the background, Jamie and I talking about various things. So what you're seeing on screen right now, while you're there, also make sure that you're signing up and leaving us your email address and signing up for our upcoming newsletter that we're going to be sending out. And again, I promise it is coming. It is coming. It will be coming. I give you my word on that. So, Jamie, why don't you tell them a little bit about
as I've been reminding everyone, don't forget to boycott hometown headlines, especially if you're one of our Northwest Georgia listeners. We cannot let liberalism infect our newspapers, especially ones we love.
Absolutely. And is there?
Can I do my favorite part yet?
Do it.
I always gotta wait. Boom! 45 days until we beat Stacey Abrams.
I am so excited to never have to say that ever again. I cannot wait until she is a far and distant memory that keeps us up at nights when we wake up with these horrible nightmares of what could have been.
No, because we know that everyone's going to get out to vote. They're going to vote for the conservative candidate, and we're going to keep moving forward with making sure that Georgians are taken care of and not becoming a socialist state like they want.
Well, notice I said what could have been.
Yeah, I know. I don't dream about shark mentality. Keep moving forward. Once you defeat them, you got to go.
Well, I honestly can't imagine how anybody could be supporting her after what she said today.
I can't either. I can't imagine how anybody would be supporting her, period. But that just means I don't even want to get into that because we got a great show coming.
We do.
And but just remember, you have to get out and vote. It's up to you to make sure that you get out and vote for Republican candidates. Otherwise, it's your fault if she becomes our governor, which we know that's not going to happen. I don't even want to get fearful of it.
Don't be mad, vote red.
Don't be mad, vote red.
So, Jamie, why don't you introduce our first affiliate?
So Net News Network is our affiliate that we're up under, and that's how we get our press credentials, and we're really excited to be a part of Net News Network and their Northwest Georgia affiliation. Please go to netnewsnetwork.net and connect with all the other affiliates inside the United States.
It is because of Net News Network that you will see us in the distant future. Well, let's be realistic. You will see us in the White House press briefing room
one day.
It's kind of we're forewarning you that we are coming.
I can't wait to.
So let's bring up our other affiliate, or the other affiliate that
Justin,
is really carrying us with this. So thank you to Veterans for America First. So Veterans for America First is it's a political advocacy organization that was created by veterans and both former and current members of the first responders community, law enforcement officers, people who have sworn to defend and protect and serve our country and our communities, our nation, with their lives. And what they're doing is they are advocating and pushing America First based policies, but they're also supporting candidates who they believe will fight tooth and nail to ensure that America is always the great nation that we have always known it to be, and we're not going to turn into a socialist hellhole.
Yeah.
So you can find kind of their social media, or you can find their media platforms and their channels by searching for Veterans Voice. Find them on YouTube, Rumble. You can find them on Facebook. Social media platform you subscribe to, you can find them there. You can also find out more information about them by going to VFAF.org or veteransforamericafirst.org and find out more about who they are, who they're supporting, who is representing them nationwide, and who they are representing as far as who they are pushing and promoting for legislative offices. And that brings us into our first guest, well, our guest, our main and only guest, Josh Williams. He's a Republican running for, as Jamie said, the State House District 41 in Ohio. He's got an incredible backstory and a bio. It's
I mean, even if you're not, even if you're not in Ohio and you haven't heard of Josh Williams, I encourage you not to just look at this interview, but look this guy up, follow him. This is just the beginning for what is going to happen with this guy. You're going to continue to see his name out there in the news.
Yes,
in a good way.
Support this man in any way you can. This is
an incredible story.
His career's got legs, and this is not the stopping point for him. So
yeah, let's bring him on.
Let's bring him on. So one of the things that we are, I have to say, is that the when you and I were talking, and the photo that you sent from the Trump rally, you realize that you actually took a picture of my shoulder.
No, I did not.
You
Are
did.
You serious?
Yes. Yes.
I did not realize that.
Yes, I was. You can see half of me from behind the podium. I was standing over there with Secret Service, with the other members of our team. But yes, you did take a photo of at least my shoulder.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Small world. Hey, that's how the connections were made.
Absolutely. And I got to say that was a great rally. It was very well attended. It was something that I think that is very. It really shows exactly how much Americans are really wanting to get back to the principles of what our current leader is saying is essentially a threat to democracy, but it's the making America great. And that's what the whole idea behind all of this is.
That's kind of the key. I mean, I really want to get into Josh's story,
absolutely,
because he is reading your bio, man. I'm highly impressed, and I just want to know more about you. So we just want to give you some time.
Yeah. So Josh, let's hear a little bit about your background, because I know that it's something that really needs to be told.
Sure. So I'm Josh Williams. Of course, I'm running for state rep. I'm currently a practicing attorney. I'm a college professor at Adrian College up in Michigan, where I teach constitutional law, and criminal procedure. I still teach now. Even during the campaign, I couldn't turn my back on my students. And then I'm a former school board president of a charter school, but life was not always that easy. So I was born and raised here in Toledo, Ohio. I'll give you guys the long version. At my birth, my dad was 68 years old, and my mom was 26. So Pops had it going on a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Hey, look, I feel that my dad was 46 when I was born, and so when your dad's ready to retire, when you start out, it gives you a whole nother perspective.
Yeah, yeah. So, born and raised here in Toledo, Ohio. My dad died when I was 5 from cancer, so I pretty much was raised by a single mother. We lived in poverty in the inner city of Toledo. After my dad died, we were entitled to some survivor benefits, so we kind of moved out into a lower middle class neighborhood in Toledo, out by the University of Toledo, in an apartment complex. And I kind of got exposed to different cultures and different groups then. So I'm not only I'm black, but my mom is half white, half Native American. So I'm a mixed kid. So going out there, I was able to get around different groups of friends, experience different cultures, different drives, and I started to kind of flourish a little bit. I struggled at first, then I started to flourish. So I was an honor student all the way up through high school. I had a pending scholarship to Ohio State as long as I maintained a 3.0 GPA. And as a senior, I became homeless and I dropped out. So I turned 18 at the end of my junior year. My mom was kind of done raising kids. I was being a knucklehead around the time. My middle brother was being a knucklehead. So she's like, hey, you guys think you know everything, get out on your own. She helped me get my first apartment and I moved out. And during the summer, I worked 2-3 jobs to support myself. But when school started, I couldn't work like I normally did. And by November, I couldn't afford to pay rent. And I ended up literally being homeless at the age of 18, sleeping on park benches and bouncing from friend's couch to friend's couch, trying to go to school and try to work. And I kind of had to make a decision whether I could be a full-time high school student or I was going to maintain some jobs and produce income for myself. And I had to drop out and I started working. So random jobs here and there. And then I met my first wife, the mother of my son, and she got pregnant. And I got introduced to a hiring agent for a railroad subcontractor. And I started working for the railroad as a subcontractor, first in manual labor, heavy labor, and then eventually in transportation and logistics. And at the age of 21, in a rainstorm, I fell 30 feet off the side of a train and destroyed my spine. So at the time, my then girlfriend was 9 months pregnant. So I kind of rushed back to work. I got hurt on July 7th of 2005. And my son was born on July 29th that year. Wow. So of course I was kind of motivated to get back to school, get back to work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, injured workers comp told me, you got some minor sprains, strains, get back to work. I was off for maybe 5 days and I'm back at it. But it keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'm going to doctors and saying, hey, I'm in pain, whatever. They're not believing me. And about a year later, in 2007 or 2006, I went to sleep on my couch, took a nap after a long day's work, went to sleep on my couch, and when I woke up, I couldn't feel my legs. And we called paramedics. I got taken to the hospital. By then the feelings that came back, and they're like, "Hey, you probably just got a pinched nerve. You need to go see a chiropractor." And I did, and they did some X-rays, and they said, "Hey, we think you may have some herniations." And it was a workers' comp case. So we applied for workers' comp to get an MRI, and workers' comp said no. I said, hey, I might have some worse conditions, and they said no. So this is the long version, by the way. I normally tell a quick version. So we had to come up with a strategy on how to get an MRI without prior authorization from Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. So every day after work, my ex-wife would drop me off at the Toledo Hospital. And I would go into the ER and say, I have back pain every day for 27 days. I did it. And eventually I saw the same doctor, same female doctor, like for the 4th time. And she's like, what do you want? And I said, I just want an MRI. And she says, well, you're stable, so we can't give you one in the emergency room. I said, just write me a prescription for it, and I'll do the rest of the work. So she wrote me a script. Eventually I got an MRI. I came back to her like 4 weeks later. She's like, why are you here? I said, I want an MRI on my neck. The first one was on my lower back. She said, well, I gave you the first one. What did it show? And I handed her a report, and I had 4 herniated discs in my lower back. And I said, I have neck pain too. So then she gave me an MRI for my neck. It showed 3 herniated discs in my neck. So from there, we're fighting to see what's going to happen. And we go to a couple different surgeons and they say you need to have a multi-level fusion. And BWC doesn't want to approve that. So they send me to a second doctor at UT or at St. Vincent's in Toledo. And they convinced me to do this little microsurgery to fix me.
Mm-hmm.
So in December of 2007, I became fully disabled at the age of 23. And
Wow.
the next month, in January 8th of 2008, I had my first back surgery. As soon as I woke up, I knew something was wrong. And I'm like, hey, I feel worse than when I went in. Oh, that's just surgical pain. Okay, so I fought through rehab, 3-4 months. I try to go back to work, and I'm like, man, it's worse than it's ever been. We do another test called a myelogram and CT. Oh, you re-herniated your disc. Go in for a second surgery in June of 2008. Have the second surgery. For the next 2 years, I didn't walk.
Wow.
So I laid in bed from
Wow.
June of 2008 until August of 2010 when I had my next surgery. For those 2 years, I couldn't walk without the use of 2 canes. I always walked hunched over like the Hunchback of Notre Dame because I couldn't put pressure on my lower back. And I literally lived in a room with all the curtains drawn and pitch black. And I was on so much medication, I used to sleep for 3 and 4 days straight. And by the time 2010 came up, I was 458 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
The medication had wreaked havoc on my body. I had grown breasts from gynecomastia from all the poisons that I was putting in my body every day. And I literally, in the middle of that in 2009, this really isn't in my bio, but people that know me at my speeches, they know. In 2009, I gave up. I had gone and seen, there's about 5 different groups of doctors here in Toledo that specialize in orthopedic or neurosurgery. And I went to all 5 groups and they all said the same thing. You're going to be disabled the rest of your life. Be happy you can walk to the toilet. And here's some medication. You know, be happy you're on disability. This is your life. And in 2009, I made arrangements for my ex-wife to take my son and my 2 stepkids to Meyer. And I sat on the edge of my bed crying and asking God for forgiveness because I was about to blow my brains out. And God talked to my wife that day and convinced her to leave my 3-year-old behind, even though I hadn't picked him up in over a year. And at that very moment, that kid walked in the room, saved my life. He said he was hungry. And I put my gun away and I grabbed my kid and I cried for the next hour until she came back.
Oh my God.
And I couldn't tell her what happened. She just saw me crying and she took my kid and was like, you know, I'll just leave you alone. And at that moment, there was just a shift in me. God literally, I wavered on my faith for a little bit. You know, I had this victim mentality where I'm like cursing God for why me? You know, why'd I have to, you know, have my dad die early? Why'd I have to be born in poverty? Why'd I have to live in roach-infested houses where I had surgically removed dead roaches out of my ears and I had permanent hearing damage? Like, why did I have to go through? Why do we have to be on WIC and welfare? You know, why did my mom, you know, have to suffer through her past? Why did we have to go through all this? And then I fall. I drop out of high school. I'm a smart guy. Why? I used to curse God about it, man. And at that moment, he came back in my life like a storm. And my mindset changed. And I went from seeing myself as a victim of my circumstances to claiming victory over my life.
Amen.
And, I literally made it my life's mission to be an example for my kid because I refused to let him be raised by a single mother like I was because his dad was selfish and took his own life. So at that very moment, God started working. And I look back now, I didn't realize it then, but I look back now and I can see it, man. Randomly, I'm taking my stepson to go get a sports physical. He introduced me to Dr. Michael Jajuga at Foundation Chiropractic here in Toledo. Amazing doctor, came and offered to treat me for free. He saw me in my back brace and said, if I can't fix you, I won't charge you a dime. Been one of my best friends since 2009. I'll tell you how he challenged me later on. God just randomly at a BWC medical exam introduced me to a lady who said, this is the lawyer you need to talk to. And I met John Palafka, workers' comp and social security attorney in Toledo. Boom, he's amazing. And it just, God started putting the right pieces in my life, the right people, giving me hope. And Dr. Jajuga sent me to Cleveland. And in 2010, I had a more recent surgery called a disc arthroplasty, an artificial disc. where they remove your disc and put in metal end plates and a plastic disc. And I felt amazing. And then I was walking, exercising, trying to lose weight, and I felt my back pop again. And I went to the doctor, and sure enough, because I was 458 pounds, it blew out the disc below it. So in 2010, I had to have a full fusion of my lower back to my pelvis. So I'm fused in both the front and the back because I'm so big. I was so big. Normally they did one or the other. They had to do both on me. And after that surgery, man, I felt stable, but I'm 450 pounds. You know, by then I think I got down like 390. And I'm like, hey, I got to lose the weight. So I went and saw a gastric surgery surgeon, gastrologist, and I had a gastric sleeve done at Cleveland Clinic in 2013. Within a year, I lost 200 pounds. So I'm starting to really feel good then, right? And I'm like, it's time to get out of this bed. It's time to be an example to my kids. So I'm talking to my lawyer. Hey, what can we do? We do a physical capacity exam. Hey, you can't do manual labor anymore. You got to do a sit-down job, sedentary. Well, I got to get retrained. All right, so how can I get retrained? And he says, man, if you are a paralegal, I would hire you in a heartbeat because you know workers' comp so well now. So let's see if we can get you a 2-year degree. And we apply to workers' comp, and they politely say no. Lay in bed, collect a check. If you can work 2 hours a day, see if you can, because I was a cashier at 17, see if you can find a cashier's job sitting down for 2 hours a day, and whatever you're paid, we'll take that out of your disability and give you what's left over every month for the rest of your life. I said, absolutely not. I want to go to college. So we did like 6 months of vocational training to prove that I was smart enough, healthy enough, committed enough to go to college, and they still denied it. So we had to threaten a lawsuit because in the state of Ohio, if you're an injured worker through BWC, if you enroll in college without their permission, you automatically become undisabled, non-disabled. You become maximum medically improved and you're kicked off of your disability. Because if you can sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day, you can go work minimum wage for 8 hours a day. So we had to threaten the lawsuit. And eventually they backed down and they said, all right, we'll let you go if you can find somebody else to pay for it. We'll keep paying your disability every month, just like we normally have been doing for years, but we're not going to pay your tuition. And we found an NGO, and we applied, and we were on a waiting list called Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. And after being on that waiting list, they finally approved me to go to college. And I started college at the age of 30 at the University of Toledo as a freshman in their paralegal studies program. And by the time I was 35, I graduated with 3 degrees, including my law degree.
Amen.
So I didn't take a semester off. I took max credits. In 3 years, I got my associates and my bachelor's with honors. I graduated magna cum laude. I got a full scholarship to UT Law. I went to UT Law, graduated a semester early. Took the bar exam when I was able to because of COVID. They delayed it. Passed the bar exam by 35 points. God has always been in my corner. I can tell you guys, this is a long version. I can tell you, I got remarried. My wife is upstairs. She was my fiance at the time when I was taking the bar. And our wedding was scheduled for August. And in Ohio, they gave us a temporary license to practice before we took the bar exam. And she's watching me study. And I'm studying 1 to 2 hours a day for 2 weeks. And she's talking to friends that are taking the bar in Michigan. They're studying 15, 16 hours a day. So she had some kind of coming to Jesus moments with me. And she's like, hey, what are you going to do after you fail? I said, wait, what? Like, you're not studying like you're supposed to. So, after you fail this time, what are you going to do different? And I said, there's nothing I can do different. Everything I read, I already know. She said, there's no way. I said, I don't know how this is happening, but God has blessed me with a brilliant brain. And when I started going down the path he intended for me, he's made it so easy. So I'm studying, and the bar exam's at home. So I'm literally in my underwear and t-shirts taking a bar exam. And there's a break, 15-minute break in between each section. My wife will open the door and say, how did you do? And I look at her, I say, babe, I aced it. She's like, there's no way. After every section. And then we got to the end. And she's like, all right, so when you fail, what are you going to do differently next time? And I told her, I said, there's no way I failed. She said, how? I said, I knew every single question. There wasn't one question I guessed on. She said, you barely studied. I said, God was putting it in my brain. Every question, the answer was on the tip of my brain. I don't know how, he blessed me. Sure enough, the scores come back. I had colleagues fail by 30, 40 points, and I passed by 35 points, only through the grace and mercy of God. So I head into my career, and I had some bumps and bruises along the way. And I'll tell you that. I'll back up in a second. So I head into my career, and I feel unfulfilled. You know, I get married to this beautiful Black queen, conservative woman, religious woman, great family. And I'm literally telling her, like, I'm unfulfilled. Like, I don't know why. I'm just not happy in my career. She's like, what? You can make a ton of money. You got a great story. Like, people are flocking to you. I've never had to take a court appointment. I'm a private attorney. You know, we pay for our wedding, no debt. And I could tell something was missing. So I started just praying about it and praying about it and praying about it. And I'd always talk politics with friends and family because I've always been conservative, but I've always been an independent. I always wanted a politician to earn my vote. I know, and it's been proven now that I'm a candidate, you know, when you're a lifelong Republican or a lifelong Democrat, they don't work for your vote.
Yep.
No, it's true.
So when Republicans would knock on my door and want my vote, I would push them on how conservative they are, whether you align with my principles. If you don't, I'm not. And then when they get elected, I hold their feet to the fire. I'm writing emails. And trust me, people hated me because when my state rep used to ignore me, I would take that same email and forward it to every single state rep in my state. And they all would say, we're not your state rep. We'll forward it to your state rep. So they didn't get my email. They got 98 other emails from their colleagues saying, you need to call Josh Williams. And then they call me back. And I'm like, hey, remember, you told me at my door you were going to do X and you're not doing it. And like,
that's what's up.
Yeah.
That's how I learned to play politics. Get people's attention. But I've always been a conservative. I've always been a conservative Christian. And I would talk politics behind closed doors with people, especially in law school, where I was a pariah in a liberal school. I was a Black conservative, a Republican Federalist Society secretary. You know, they would call me a Nazi and a slave. This is during the whole Antifa where they called everybody a Nazi.
Yeah.
They would call me a Nazi, a slave trader, Uncle Tom, in affront of my race, all kind of craziness because I didn't believe in open borders and I didn't believe in the welfare system. So eventually I'm talking to friends and colleagues, and they're like, man, not only are you smart, you're passionate, you got a great story, great history, but you're on top of the topics and you have solutions. You ought to run. I said, man, that's not my assignment. And eventually it just happened so often that I started praying about it. And I said, God, if this is the assignment you got for me, just like law school was so easy, just like college was so easy because I was on a path you set down, you'll show me. If this is easy to get started, I know it's the assignment you laid down for me. And sure enough, just like the lawyers and doctors, Board of Election officials started coming, talking to me. Secretary of State at a fundraiser come and talk to me about everyone, board, you know, my county members, former mayors, they're all talking to me about running. And I've never been a declared Republican in your district. You know nothing about me. And they are, hey, we heard about you. You know, we got told to come and talk. It just became readily apparent. So 4 months after I got married, I walked into my wife and said, babe, I think I'm going to cut my career in half and run for state rep and make a substantial less amount of money. And I thought she was going to call me crazy. And we had a good conversation, and it came down to this. My wife told me, she said, people that look like us don't get opportunities like this every day, especially to run as a conservative and as a Republican.
Yep.
If you can assure me you have the backing of the party, I will be mad if you didn't run. I said, okay, say less. So I went to Columbus and I met with the ORP. I met with ORA. I met with some groups that I'm passionate about, school choice, you know, pro-life groups. And I pretty much said, you know, if you got my back, I'm running. And they said, hey, if you declare, you know, we'll screen you like everybody else, but you seem like the candidate we want. So I pulled my petitions and I declared. And part of my platform is criminal justice reform. So I'll back up in a moment. In my sophomore year of college, when I was disabled and 458 pounds, my doctor said, Josh, we got to get you out of that bed or you're going to die. What were you doing before you became disabled? And I said, I was coaching baseball, basketball, football. They said, well, you got to go back to coaching. I said, well, man, I'm disabled. You know, the government's going to hate the idea of me coaching. They said, listen, I don't care if you're sitting in a chair You need to get out there. You're going to die. We'll go to war with the government. You need to do what you need to do to survive. So there's photos out there of me coaching baseball and thousands of parents that I coach their kids of me coaching baseball games, sitting on a bucket the entire game because I couldn't stand up. Or football games where I literally called plays by signals because I had to sit on the bench. So literally I would have to signal into my quarterback from the sideline, from the bench, because I couldn't stand up. But once I got healthy, I made a commitment I would continue coaching. So in my sophomore year of college, I'm coaching in an organization called the Stars League, the South Toledo Area Recreational Society. And a lady got kicked out of our league. I'm the secretary of our executive board. I got to write her letter of suspension for violating our bullying policy. She bullied little girls online. She was a cheerleading coach. She bullied other cheerleaders. All right, you're suspended for a year. She created a competitor to us with our same names and logos, getting permits at our same parks. And we're like, we're not worried about her because it takes a lot to fund 10 teams with, 100 kids on each team. That's a lot of equipment that you got to pay for.
Yeah.
Well, when it's time to start putting equipment on, we start seeing her kids walking down the street with jerseys and helmets that we recognize. And we're like, whoa, where's she getting this stuff? Well, come to find out she was dating one of the coaches in our league who was giving her access to our locker. So my league, in a public meeting in the minutes, gave me orders to go and get my name put on the locker and remove the remaining equipment, and I did that. And 3 days later, she found out about it, got the locker put in her name, filed 2 felony charges against me. And I was indicted and charged and arrested in front of my kids for breaking and entering with the intention to commit a felony and felony grand theft in 2015. And I'm like, man, I did everything right. And I'm looking at years in prison. Our system's not set up for you to fight in the beginning. So I had 2,000 documents to prove my innocence. But in Ohio, you're supposed to have a right to a preliminary hearing, which is a adversarial hearing. I get to cross-examine witnesses. I get to bring my own attorney. But I live in a blue bubble here in Lucas County where we haven't had a preliminary hearing. We had 2. We haven't had more than 2 in 12 years in Toledo Municipal Court.
Wow.
Most people waive their preliminary hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get bound over to the grand jury where anyone gets to go behind closed doors and lie about you. Or you fight it. They dismiss your case called a nolli prosequi, and then they walk it over to the grand jury, and when they indict it, they put a warrant out for you. And they put you on a list of enforcement on the weekends. So on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they go out and try to get people with warrants, because then they get to seize your car. If your kid's in the back seat, they get to take your kid to Children's Services, right? You're in for
it becomes like a money pit, yeah.
You're in for the whole weekend because in Lucas County, you can't get a bond over the weekend for a felony. So you lose your job, you lose your car. By the time you get out, you're presumed guilty for purposes of bond. You may have a $50,000 bond, and you lose everything. Your wife has left you. Your kids have left you. Now your wife's living with her parents. You lost your house. You lost your car. You lost your job. And for me, as soon as I was indicted, it opened a discovery window. We provided the 2,000 documents to the prosecutor. First document showed on August 1st, my name is on the locker when I went in. August 3rd, her name is transferred. When she files a police report saying I stole August 1st. Well, you can't steal from yourself.
Yeah.
Case dismissed. After I lost my coaching job at Start High School, where I was a baseball coach, never played an inning for Start High School because I was poor and had to work, but I'm there as a baseball coach, taking us to city championships. And I lose my job there coaching because I got 2 felonies pending, and you can't have a criminal record and coach.
The damage had already been done.
Already been done. Case dismissed. But they were refusing to seal my record. So for 6 months, we fought to seal my record. I'm on my way to law school. I need this thing sealed.
Yeah.
A Democrat judge, Myron Duhart, went to war for me and said, why are you holding this young black man up from law school? I'm going to take it that you're putting in a motion to amend your dismissal to with prejudice so I can seal his record today. And the prosecutor said, yes, Your Honor, we're going to dismiss with prejudice. Seal, good luck, Mr. Williams. Well, 2 years later, I'm in law school, and I walk up to Judge Myron Duhart, who teaches there, and I say, you may not remember me, but you gave me an opportunity to get my record sealed so I could be here. So I'm going to take your class when it's available. Next semester, I took his trial practice class where he taught me how to be a trial attorney. And I took top honors, top grade in that class. I booked it. He was going to let me propose to my wife in his courtroom in a mock trial where I was going to have her 12 family members serve as jurors while I plead guilty to a mock version of my indictment, breaking and entering into her heart with the intention to steal her from all eligible suitors.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's pretty good.
The news was the news was gonna cover it. It was scheduled for like mid-April. COVID hits.
Oh,
Court shut down. School shuts down. And
America shuts down.
He's like, oh, it might just be 1 month. You know, we did the quarantine, so it might just be 6 weeks. Just hold on, Josh. May comes. No, we're not opening up. June comes. No, we're not opening up. I said, man, I'm getting married. So I plan an alternative engagement, but that was going to be epic.
That was going to be epic.
Yeah. Right. So then when I passed the bar, there was only one person that wanted to swear me in. I'm a Republican. He's a Democrat, but he practiced from the bench the way that I want to see jurors. He's not a judicial activist. You know, he actually practiced the way I wanted to see judges practice. So I asked him to swear me in. And he swore me in as a practicing attorney. So
that's awesome.
Another layer to the story is the same criminal defense attorney that represented me, Stephen Groth, in the same law firm I walked in as a client, Groth and Associates, same law firm I worked for the last 7 years. I was an intern, became a paralegal. I go to law school. First time I took the LSAT, I only got a half a scholarship. Well, come to find out, my boss was arguing with his wife for 6 months because he was going to be paying my other half of my tuition. I retook the LSAT, got a full ride. His wife walked in and said, thank God we can stop arguing. I said, what were you arguing about? She said, he was going to pay your tuition. I said, there's no way. He's like, yeah, I told you were going to law school. He supported me all the way through. And now I'm a practicing attorney, a criminal defense attorney at the same law firm where I was a criminal defense client.
Wow. So
it really went 360. So criminal justice reform, it gets a bad rap. You know, you hear about this defund the police and letting people out on bonds and all. No. My criminal justice reform is that we want to open up our grand jury system in the state of Ohio, make it where defendants can waive their prelim and ask for an open grand jury, where your accuser and you go in front of a jury of your peers and you both tell your sides of the story, cross-examine each other, present evidence, and you just your peers get to decide if you get the stain of an indictment on your record.
Yeah, I can see it. It's almost kind of a sense of a trial in public court before you actually go to court.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have that stigma brought around you, because when you, even with the fact that your record being sealed, there's still the public record of the arrest that always come up in any sort of a background check.
Exactly. And well, you know, like public opinion is going to judge you regardless. So the best thing to do is now have a avenue for public opinion to judge you beforehand. That's legal, and not just some kind of discretionary thing that's portrayed by the media or whoever puts out an article about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do. I like that idea.
This is awesome. Your bio does not do you justice. I just want you to keep talking.
Well, it does. There's 1,000 more layers. I'm like an onion. I tell my wife, as you peel back more layers, the tears start to well up. But
I hear you, man. Because like, let me tell you something. Your bio does not do you justice. You are. I can't even describe it. Like you are what it means to be a conservative in America, to keep fighting for the dream, and what it means to walk on faith. Like,
he's literally the perfect example of what the American dream is.
Exactly.
In working to achieve it.
Exactly. Like, I'm just gonna shut up until you're done. I just had to say that. Like, I mean, this is amazing.
I appreciate it. So that's part of the system, but at the same time, there's occasions where you need to have that secret grand jury. So like no-knock warrants and nighttime raids, where I'm going to use legal terms, where police have to give additional indicia, probable cause to indicate the need for a no-knock warrant and a nighttime raid. They can give additional indicia of why they need a secret grand jury, such as flight risk, threat to witnesses, evidence may be tampered with. You know, you can go in and say these things, and they say, okay, well, you can go behind closed doors without the defendant present or his lawyer. But when it's neighbor A accusing neighbor B of stealing a $2,000 lawnmower, tell me why neighbor A and neighbor B can't go in front of the grand jury at the same time.
Yep.
There's no reason for it. So those are some of the small changes that we want to have here in the criminal justice system. to make it more reasonable. And additional things like I believe in bond. I even believe in cash bond staying. I think there needs to be a better structure to bonds. And I think there needs to be a rule that makes judges articulate on the record what factors they considered in setting bond.
So can you tell us, I'm sorry, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I know that's going to be I know that's a ballot referendum question. That the voters are going to be taking place.
So we have issue 1 on our ballot, which is whether or not a judge can consider public safety as one of the factors. So we have rules here, Rule 46, that tells judges what factors they must consider in determining bond. And what you get is you get a cookie cutter bond system. You're supposed to determine, the ability to pay of the defendant, his criminal history, his prior failures to appear. In some instances, before this ruling by our now activist Supreme Court, you could consider public safety. You can consider the seriousness of the offense. You can consider the wishes of the victim. These are factors the judge is supposed to consider. But I'm a practicing attorney here in Lucas County. I've never once heard a judge articulate those factors and why they were setting a bond. Instead, it's you're accused of this level felony, $100,000, no 10%. We can have 3 co-defendants, all with different levels of income, different criminal histories, different ties to the community, different overall threats to our community. And all 3 will get the exact same bond. And the judge will say, oh yeah, I considered all the factors listed in Rule 46, bond set at $100,000, no 10%. No, I want a rule where they have to articulate considering public safety as a factor, considering the amount of income that the defendant has. He makes X amount per month. Considering his prior criminal history, he has this many convictions. Considering his failures to appear, he has this many failures to appear. You won't see that on a record across the state of Ohio.
Wow.
You just won't. So that's part of the concerns that we have here is we can be a conservative state all we want, but you're going to get blue bubbles like Lucas County that's had a Democrat prosecutor for just as long as Marcy Kaptur's been in office. And everybody complains, especially Black people in Lucas County, about how we're treated in our criminal justice system, but you keep voting them back in every other November. It doesn't make sense to me. So at least we can hold the judges to a standard to at least tell us on the record why you're doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Instead of just reading a script. So that's part of my criminal justice reform. And that's one of them, but that's not high on voters' minds right now. So I'll get to some of the ones that
is
are
true.
High on their minds. The economy. My opponent, Nancy Larson, is a socialist. She's a Bernie Sanders endorsed socialist. She ran as a socialist last time she ran. This time she changed all her social media and she's running as a Biden moderate. But we have all the receipts. She was worse.
Yeah.
She was a true socialist before, and now she's running, trying to middle of the ground. But we have all the videos of her endorsing Bernie Sanders, saying that Biden is incompetent, that he has mental defects, he's not fit for the White House. And then when he won the nomination, she went back on and said, well, I endorse Biden, and I encourage all of my supporters to vote for Biden. Well, either you care about this country or you don't. Because if I don't think somebody's fit for office, I don't care if you're my nominee. I'm not going to encourage people to vote for you.
Yeah.
Period.
That's it.
Period.
Wow.
It shows her character, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going against somebody that's going in front of the chambers of commerce and our state, cities, and told them to small businesses that if you can't afford to pay $15 an hour, shut your doors.
Wow.
She went and openly said this. And that's why I'm endorsed by NFIB. Independent small businesses love me because I politely tell them it is not the government's role to dictate wages.
No.
It's the market's role to dictate wages. The cost of the good and service that is provided will dictate how much of a wage you can pay to provide that good and service.
Amen. Yep.
So if the cost of the good doesn't support what you consider a living wage, oh well. So her response is always, well, we should just give everybody a living wage. She doesn't understand. I give it in the best term. She's an idiot. She doesn't understand. And I'm sorry to be so harsh, but
no, because you're on point. I mean, that's the thing about it. I mean, but multiple people, like if you live above your means, you have to work multiple jobs. That's just the reality of it. You know,
it's not just living above your means. It's if your marketable skills don't match the level you want to live at, get better marketable skills.
Snaps. Yep.
Go to school.
It's
Get a
not-
law
it's
Get
not-
degree.
trained.
Yeah.
Do what's necessary to provide better for yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'll put it in the analogy of my law firm. If I have a first year secretary walk through the door and we say we're going to pay you $12 an hour until you get some skills, some ability, then we'll look at reevaluating you. And then my paralegal who has a 2-year degree, we pay her $15 an hour. This is just hypothetical. This isn't our pay rate, so don't come in my Facebook blowing me up. All right,
These are only examples. Yeah.
It's hypothetical. We pay better than that at my firm. But my paralegal who has an associate's degree makes $15 an hour. And then my law clerk who has a bachelor's and is in grad school, he makes $17, $18 an hour. And then our associates, we're independent contractors. You make as much as you can make grinding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Nancy wants to come in and tell me your secretary's got to make 15. Well, it sounds good on paper. All right. Now she's making as much as a paralegal with two-year degree, student loan debt. What do you think that paralegal is going to come in my room and do? They're going to come to my office and say, "Why am I making as much as the unskilled secretary you just hired? I need $18 an hour, $20 an hour." And I'm going to give into your demand and say, "Okay, you got $20 an hour." Now my law clerk with a 4-year degree is going to come in and say, "Why am I making less than the secretary who doesn't have a bachelor's degree and isn't in law school and can't do what I do? I need $25 an hour." And I'm going to say, "Okay, here you go." And then I start looking at my overhead and I got a choice to make. Am I going to take less money in or am I going to raise the cost of my services to match? That's called inflation.
Yep. Because that's the only way you can match the scale.
Yeah.
It's
You know what I mean?
inflation.
They want to fix the bottom, but they forget about everything else that comes with it.
So does it really matter that you make $15 an hour when everything went up $3 more in price? Does it matter? It doesn't matter. So what our solution is you get out there and you gain marketable skills. That isn't just going to college, right? You can get work skills. You can get on YouTube and learn how to code. You can learn business. There's so much knowledge available. All you got to do is get off your ass and get out there and look for it.
Yep.
I literally had to fight to get out of bed. I fought to get out of. I could have laid and collected $38,000 a year in benefits. I was raising a family of 5 on that barely. I was above the poverty line, so I wasn't getting free health care. I wasn't entitled to Obamacare, and I could survive. But I fought and said, "Government, I don't want you paying anything to me. I want an opportunity to gain marketable skills." They said, "No. Sit down, shut up. Here's a check. Give me your vote." And I'm here proudly as a Republican to say that's not the way it's going to be in my state. All of our benefit packages are going to be attached to requirements. We're going to create programs, and we already have some in the state of Ohio. Look at our governor's website. Look at our lieutenant governor's website on our workforce development plan. It hasn't been implemented the best way, and that's where I'm going to make some changes when I get in office. But we have opportunities here in funding where you can go and get micro accreditations. You don't got to get a degree. But industry has told us if this person has these skills, we will give them an interview and entry-level job. So take Intel, for example, just came to Ohio. They know there's a workforce shortage for Intel. They know it. We don't have the bodies and the manpower and the skill workforce. We need to work with Intel and put together a accreditation program where they tell us a list of 10 skills you want on entry-level workers. They already said that they'll pay entry-level $70,000, $80,000 a year plus. So let's see what skills we can develop without a college degree. All right, here's a list of them. All right, let's go to our tech centers, our community colleges, our third-party vendors, and say, can you design a program that's going to implement these marketable skills? Yes, here it is. We go back to Intel. Hey, will you rubber stamp that? Yes, Intel rubber stamps it. If you go to these training centers and these programs and you pass a background check and you pass a drug test, we'll give you an interview guaranteed. All right, perfect, right? Sounds like a plan. Now, what do we do with that? We take that and make it available to everybody in the state of Ohio, which we've done. There's certain training centers that already is approved. We want to expand that. But at the same time, you use our social net systems as an ability to highlight and spotlight people that have been left behind by the normal course of capitalist society. Okay, you weren't able to climb the social economic ladder on your own. We're not going to say why. You're not a victim. It's not because of your race or your single mother, because you had kids. Cut all the excuses. What we're going to do is we're going to say, if you're going to take advantage of these benefit packages, there's no reason when your kid's in school from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., you can't be in a training course from 10 to 2 every day. If you
Especially
enroll
it's
it,
online.
right? It could be all online.
Yeah.
If you do that, we're going to keep your benefits coming. We're not going to make it a work requirement. We're going to count this as your work requirement that you're in it. 6 months, 9 months maximum training. Now you got the marketable skills. We give you a little bit of gas money to go down to Columbus and interview with Intel. Intel offers you a job. Perfect, right? Now we've got somebody making $70,000, $80,000 a year. We got them off of our system, paying taxes back into the system, and you dug somebody out of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you create social economic growth.
Yep.
You can use it to get lower level individuals in the economy, and it appears as though you're really giving people the opportunity to, if you're motivated, we can help you dig yourself out of your situations. But if you're not motivated, I have no sympathy cutting off your damn benefits.
Yep, that's it.
And
I love it.
Yeah, no.
And there's another layer. You also look at where we have violence in our state. Those bubbles of violence that is causing up the crime rate for the rest of the state. That's where we should be putting a highlighter on, and there should be more than one training center there. There should be more resources activated there. Although everybody's eligible to get in these programs, we should be pushing it there. So if you're showing up to Job and Family Services applying for benefits, you should be required to go through orientation, just like if you're at a job that teaches you these programs are available. For me to go to college, I had to go through 6 months of vocational training and aptitude testing. They tested me to see where my personality fit into the workforce. These jobs match your abilities. Let's look at those jobs. Which ones can you get with less than 2 years degree or training? All right, let's look at those. Which ones are viable in your area of the state? Paralegal studies. Let's do market research and make sure paralegal studies produces enough salary can justify you going to college for 2 years. It does. Josh, you got the green light to go to school. Why can't we do that for every single person that's been left behind? Because the reason is the Democrats know that the more independent you become of them, the higher you climb on a social economic ladder, the more conservative and Republican you become. And that's why they continue to import impoverished people to fill the void. We can dig people out of poverty all we want, but as long as we got an open border, there's always going to be more.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because once you get somebody above that poverty line and get them to where they're gaining prosperity, where they're living a better lifestyle, they're going to want to protect that lifestyle. And we all recognize and notice that the Democrat policies they are anti.
And it's interesting to note, right, that we went from a merit-based system, and that's what we try to get back to. And that's why I'm loving this, right? Because here's the thing. They don't want a merit-based system for all of these reasons, because they know the more you earn, the higher you go up the ladder, the more drive that you have, the more you realize what they're doing is trying to keep people down. Mm-hmm. And the only way to get out of that is to get less dependent upon them, which is what they don't want.
They don't want it.
They don't want it because that's the only thing that they can go off. That's the only thing that they can go after.
You hit on a significant note there. It's something that they don't want Americans to have, or don't really want Americans moving forward with. And that kind of runs into another mindset. And I know this is something that you had on your website, but I wanted to ask you, we're starting to see a big, massive, wide national movement towards trying to essentially get rid of what they are dubbing assault weapons or weapons of war, things along that nature. They're trying to actually push through a bill in the House and in Congress now that would require for you to have a license even to have that sort of weapon. And they're just the qualifications to hold these licensures are unreal. But I wanted to see where you fall on that spectrum and kind of get an idea of where you stand involving the Second Amendment.
Yeah. So I'm a pro-gun guy. I mean,
fair enough.
Until last year, I owned an AR-15. I moved into Oregon where there's a lot of moisture in my house, so it has superficial rust. So I got rid of it, and I'm looking at buying an IWI 95 Tavor. That's my next purchase. I'm a gun guy. I could go upstairs and pull out my gun safe, and we can have fun talking about all my toys.
Oh, he doesn't want to start pulling out guns.
Hey, we love it.
I literally, that is the closest that I can legally get at the moment for the weapon that I was issued when I was in the military. So, yeah, it's the trigger doesn't go the fully automatic, but it does have the third position on it. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I'm going to give you guys a couple more topics because I got to run.
Oh, yes, sir.
So one, but when it comes to guns, it's real simple. I don't got to have a license to have free speech. You don't want to have a license to get a damn abortion, but you want me to have a license to exercise my Second Amendment right. Let's be clear. That Second Amendment right is there to keep a tyrannical government in check. There was a reason why Japan, after we beat them and we put them in military tribunals, when we asked them, why did you not do a ground invasion after your air raids? They said, because there's a rifle under every bed in America.
Yep.
Our enemies know it. Germany decided never to try to come over here during World War II because they knew what was going to happen. We may have a set military, but if you step boots on this ground, you're going to see the militia come forward, just like we did when we were fighting the British, just like we did when we were fighting for our freedom. I mean, 1812, you're going to see it all over again.
Yep.
So
full force. Yep.
The second protects the rest.
Yeah. Should these semi-automatic rifles be in the hands of civilians? Absolutely. Absolutely. More people need to be qualified. More people need to own them. Period. Now, you need to put stringent requirements in it for individuals when it comes to other things. So do I support red flag laws? No, I don't, because it violates my due process rights. But currently we have TPOs, temporary protection orders, and CPOs, civil protection orders, where if an individual threatens another individual and you can prove that there's been a pattern of threatening, I can get a CPO, and that takes away your Second Amendment right. So why shouldn't the government be able to step in and have that same application process? Due process applies. You will get a formal hearing. If they can prove that you are unstable, perfect. Go ahead, take that person's guns away and get him the treatment that he needs. But the average American has an absolute right to it. You're never going to take it. I'm going to have one whether you believe it's legal or not. Come in my home if you want to.
Yep. Love it.
Yep.
It's real simple. These guns we were intended to have military style weapons.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
We were intended to have a weapon that was equivalent to our soldiers under our bed. So when we were invaded, we were able to establish a militia, go to the field and defend our homes. And at the same time, if the government wanted to become tyrannical into our homes, putting soldiers inside of our homes, taking our property, taking portions of our corn stock to feed themselves, we had the absolute right and the obligation, according to our founding fathers, to pick up arms against them. So yes, part of our Second Amendment is that it is a buttress against a tyrannical government, period. So you don't want us to be a threat towards our government. That was the intention behind it. You don't like it, do exactly what we've done on dozens of times and amend the Constitution. You don't like how hard it is to do it. That was the intention of the forefathers. You want to ignore constitutional principles because you think they were racist slave owners. But what you need to realize is they created the greatest political document known to man. And the reason is they knew they weren't divine. They knew they weren't perfect. They knew they would make errors. And they made it so we could amend it. Get the political movement behind you and amend it. Stop going to the judges, asking them to become judicial activists and change the meaning of words. The Civil Rights Act said sex you couldn't discriminate against, not sexual orientation or gender identity. But yet justices said, we don't see a reason why we shouldn't expand it there. The reason is it's not your damn role.
Yep.
That's the legislature's role.
I love it.
That's the legislature's role. So I'm a Second Amendment guy. Pro-life to the hilt. So I look at protecting the life inside of the womb just like if it's outside the womb. So in the state of Ohio, for me to take a life of another, I must show an imminent or immediate threat of great bodily harm or death to justify me taking the life of another human being. Why is it different inside the womb? I can understand if you want to give a mother an abortion pill, early on because she's showing signs that, there's something wrong, atopic pregnancies. Okay, there's an absolute imminent threat to her life. Okay, I can understand. I'm not going to make any woman die on the delivery table. But let's be clear. If that baby's viable, the first option is delivery, never abortion.
Amen.
Even when it comes to rape and incest, look at it like this. When a woman is being raped by a man, or even vice versa, we've had the other ones, but percentage-wise, it's always a woman being raped by a man. When can that woman use lethal force in the state of Ohio to defend herself? During the rape? In anticipation of the rape, she can use it. If her attacker got off top of her and walked 10 feet away with his back turned, could she use it? I think a jury may side with her. But for damn sure, 6 months later, if she sees him in a Walmart, she can't follow him home, ring his doorbell, and shoot him dead. So if you can't kill the rapist 6 months later, why can you kill the baby that's a result of the rape?
That's a good point.
Don't punish the baby. We've made it so easy here in the state of Ohio for you to give that baby up for adoption. You can drop it off at a fire station. We've created little mailboxes where you can put them in. There's a camera, and you can leave them behind. Nobody needs to know that you did it. And when a woman abandons a child in the state of Ohio, we say, "Oh my, it took such strength for her to do that." For her to do that. But when it comes to men, we can't abandon a child. Period. So why does a woman have a unilateral right to kill our child? 97% of all abortions in the state of Ohio come from consensual sex. You made your choice. Live with it. You laid down and you engaged in an adult activity that you knew there was a likelihood of sex. I don't care if you use protection or not. You know there's a likelihood of sex, of pregnancy, resulting from that sex act. Therefore, if pregnancy happens, that's on you. What I hate to see is abortion is being used as a form of birth control. If you made a conscious decision to sleep with Johnny, and 6 months later, you find out Johnny was cheating on you with Sarah and he doesn't want to be with you, why does the baby have to pay?
Amen.
Yeah.
Right? Pro-choice people want to give abortions up to birth. And then you ask them, well, what is birth? Well, we're going to let the provider decide. Wait. If one of his legs is still inside, is that birth? We're going to let the provider decide and the woman decide. Well, wait. If the baby's all the way out crying, but the placenta is still inside of the vaginal canal, is the baby birth? We're going to let the provider decide. No, thank you. We've already gotten rid of that stuff.
That's
Give me 1 second. I got to say. Give me 1 second.
Oh yeah, no worries. You're good.
My son's texting me.
I'm
supposed to be meeting him right now.
We understand you got to go.
No,
you
you're
need
fine.
to.
Well, we're going to get campaign polls for our campaign sign. So I'm double booked. But I didn't know you guys were going to give me so much free time to say everything, man. I would have booked 3 hours.
Hey, we
dude, we love it.
I mean, in all honesty, we can get you come back on another day. I love this.
This is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, your bio doesn't do you justice.
No, I literally got chills.
Like chills this entire time. All right. Keep going.
Last topic, school choice. I'm a school choice guy to the hilt. Let's be clear. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Absolutely.
So I've lived in areas. So right now, I encourage everybody listening, if you live in the state of Ohio or you don't live in the state of Ohio, do this for me. Go into the Board of Education's website, type in Ed Choice Designation Schools. It's going to pull up a kind of like a Excel spreadsheet where you can select counties. Look at my county, Lucas County. Type it in. You get a list of all the schools that are Ed Choice eligible. That means they're failing. They're failing our students. They're not producing kids that are academically equivalent to their peers. 99.9% of the schools listed are from the city of Toledo.
Wow.
There is one school that is technically outside of the city. It's in Washington Local, which is right on it's a part of Toledo, but they were allowed to keep their own school district. That's the only other one. Not one of our suburbs has a failing school in Lucas County. All of them are in the city of Toledo where you have a Democrat bubble. They intentionally deprive you of your educational opportunities as an avenue to make it where you can't gain a living wage coming out of high school because you wouldn't vote for them. That you can't go to college on your own. Therefore, you got to apply for extra points being gay, trans, a certain racial group, using affirmative action as a way to make up for their inadequate educational systems.
Mm-hmm.
So school choice is a passion of mine. Let me be clear. School choice is not just about academics. It's about morals. It's about parental rights. As a parent, I can be in the most academically excellent school in the state. And if you walk in that classroom and want to teach my kids CRT as a Black man in America, or you want to teach them that boys can be girls and girls can be boys, or that they can change their gender without telling their parent, which we currently have a school board here in Toledo that wants to do that. They have what's called queer closets. You can drop your son off to school and he gets to go in a queer closet, put on a dress and high heels and be your daughter all day. And then come back to be your son at the end of the day. I'll give you inside information I've never said in an interview. And I don't care. We're going to the heat of the beast now. I sat in a meeting with the Lucas County Black Caucus, where I'm the only Black Republican. And in my first meeting, I watched they give the floor to a Toledo school board member, sitting school board member who advertised herself as openly queer. And she is actively petitioning us to drum up support against House Bill 454 by my friend and colleague Gary Click. That bill says that you cannot chemically castrate a child before the age of 18. You can't give transitioning drugs to a minor. And it also says no government official can transition your child's gender without telling the parent. She petitioned against that, saying that the child is in a hostile home that is not affirming their gender identity. Therefore, the school is in the best position to give gender affirming care, including gender affirming drugs.
Oh, man.
And that we should vote against this bill. I had to raise my hand and ask if that was the opinion of the group or her, because if it was, I was withdrawing my membership.
Immediately.
I've been back to a meeting since.
Man, I know there's been legislation that is just like that that's been filed at the congressional level. Yeah. And there was a massive conservative organization that actually sent out a letter to every sitting member of Congress and says, okay, if you're going to continue on with us supporting you, you need to jump on board with this bill as well.
Yeah. It's absurd. So parents can be in the best academic school, but they should have the choice of removing their child from that woke agenda that's being introduced into the curriculum and into the what they call SEL. So it's not CRT with those letters being introduced in the curriculum. They're using SEL, social emotional learning. It's been around since the 80s. And literally, they're just changing what's being taught under that same SEL. So when you look at it, they say SEL has been around since the 80s. What are you complaining about? Yeah, it is. But I can show you articles where literally they're using SEL to implement CRT. So parents should have the option to take their tax dollars and run.
Yeah,
what's wrong with that idea? What's wrong? If you have an obligation as a government to provide an education, and I'm providing my tax dollars for that education, and I have a school-age child, why shouldn't I be able to choose what school my kid goes to? Why does it matter if I want to put my kid in a Christian school? Why does it matter? Right now, I can take them out of a public school and put them in a charter school, and the tax dollars follow. So why can't I do it with a religious school or a private school? There's no difference. Instead, they want you to have to pay the tuition. See, that's a barrier to lower income families. So if you're poor, you're higher likelihood of voting Democrat. Well, we're going to give you this woke agenda. We want you to vote for a certain caliber of Democrat candidate. We want the left to be promoted inside the schools. And if you have any question about that intention, look to some of the interviews that came from KGB members back in the 70s that were open when they defected and said that it was our intention to turn the United States communist through the education system. You give us 2 generations and you'll be voting for communism and you won't even know it. And now we got kids running around with black masks on and all black, beating people over the head with pipes, carrying a flag that has the logos of communists splattered all over it.
Or carrying the acronym Antifa, trying to say that they're trying to stop fascism, but what they're actually doing is literally fascism.
Well, it's the same thing, the Democratic model that's been going on for a long time. Planned Parenthood, everything else, right? They're doing this to keep the African American culture down, and by taking the right away from the parent, then they can go ahead and add these woke agenda incremental changes that they can change a generation over and over again. The whole point is, once again, to keep it at 13% and keep it docile, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, so this is part of my platform. I mean, and then of course the last one, you got my opponent who wants to, give personhood to the lake, but not to a baby in the womb. She wants to blame farmers and make every farmer have a water reclamation plan on site. And I debate her on Thursday, and she's an idiot. I'm not going to give my strategy away, but she doesn't realize that our cities have been caught dumping billions of gallons of untreated waste into Lake Erie and into the Great Lakes that directly feed into the algae bloom. So you want to blame farmers, and instead you should be blaming your own toilet.
Yep. Wow. Send us the link to your debate, because, dude.
Yes.
I'm following you the rest of the race.
I will, and I'll be back on because I want more time.
Oh,
absolutely.
Cover all of our topics. But I appreciate you guys having me on. I got to run. I appreciate it. Continue doing what you guys are doing to push the conservative movement forward. And I mean, one of the reasons that I decided to run was that I really do think it was my assignment. But part of that assignment, I think, is to enlighten our legislators in the state of Ohio and put issues that are in front of them and allow them to see it through a different lens. Not many people were homeless high school dropouts, raised in a family where half my family was racist. I've never met one side of my family because they threatened to kill me when I tried to step on their porch at the age of 14. The life experiences that I've been through, I used to see myself as a victim, but I see it as actually God was getting me prepared for an assignment that I could only meet.
Absolutely.
And I have a job to do, and that's to be the only black face in the state legislature. I will be the only black face in the state house, and depending on the results of the Senate races in Ohio, I may be the only black face in the entire state legislature in the majority party. People that can get things done, and I'm going to give you a lens to view how we can help black people without making them victims.
Amen.
Right. So
I love it.
That's part of our
Josh,
agenda. We can talk about it more later.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Anything
no,
you need, man,
yes.
just let us know. We'll do whatever we can to help, man. This was so good.
I appreciate it. I'll be back on. I promise. Just we'll work out a time, and I'll be back on. And next time I'll come in more casual clothing.
No, hey, brother, family first. We get it. We get it. Go, go enjoy it.
All right,
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
sir.
man. Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
You as
too.
well. Wow, that was
amazing.
truly that was everything we built it up to be.
Honestly, that was more than I even expected. Like his bio and everything really does not do him justice. It does not do him enough justice.
Absolutely not. I don't say this many times publicly, but I will absolutely say listening to that man speak, I literally got chills. I am not too macho to admit that. So
well, I mean,
literally got chills listening to it.
When I'm asked what it, like black conservative, what it means to be a conservative, what it means to be an American, like that's it. That's how you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, the social programs were used how they were supposed to as a hand up, and then you get off of the system and you continue to drive and go forward to make a better life for yourself. Josh is the epitome of that.
Josh, he is a true American by the very definition of what makes America great.
Yep, truly embodies what the spirit of merit, growth, and being an American is.
Yes. So we will be bringing Josh back on.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. That was truly awesome.
I'm still shook by it.
Yes, but
yeah,
as always, we always like to remind everyone to make sure they are liking and sharing any of the content that they see on any of the platforms that we do put any of our productions out on. Make sure you're also subscribing to any of the any of the platforms where you see any of our content. And make sure you're going to conservativetalk.org if you're able to, and helping us out by hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and helping us what you're able to, because that's how we're able to bring you more folks like this. So let's jump into the first topic that we brought up.
Yeah.
It's time for the Democrats to pay the piper. And we saw a great example of this, and we're really starting to saw a great example of this week, particularly today, where we saw them trying to push forward on something that they have wholeheartedly embraced and wholeheartedly been against for the past 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And now they're, because of the falling numbers that they're seeing in the midterms and their desperate hopes to maintain some sense of a majority, or even some sense of not having to relive what they've put the Republicans through for the past 2 years.
Well, here's the thing too. No one's fooled by this.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? Like they have literally preached defund the police over and over and over again. And then Joe Biden comes out here and says, no, we shouldn't defund the police. We should fund the police. Let's rewind some clips from what you ran on. And then this bill that just came through. You're like I cannot believe that they actually think that someone, or anyone for that matter, is actually going to believe that this is going to be a policy that they're going to put forward to actually help police departments or help our society as a whole.
So it wasn't just one bill. It was a package of 4 of them that created all this stuff. It was kind of an omnibus bill behind.
That's why I refer to it as one, because it's, I know.
You.
Yeah, but yeah.
I'm trying to be legislatively technical.
I know, and it's better to explain it how it is, you know.
Yes.
Because if we say communist or anything like that, like it's a package of different things that came together. But I mean, they had one of the squad come up there and present it.
Yes. it's so one of the reasons why we say that this is something that essentially that this is coming back to bite them in the backside and they're having to pay their dues on it is because they literally only passed this in the House by one vote. Had a disgraced member of the Republican Party actually shown up to do what her constituents had previously sent her to office to do, although she is no longer going to be doing that, thank goodness.
Clearly retaliation against the country.
Yes, exactly. She's pouting, and because she's pouting, they passed through a package of legislation in the House that had the title of funding the police and supporting them back in the blue, but in all reality, all it did was cut a lot of the procedures and a lot of the resources that actual policing is going to needs desperately, and moves a lot of it towards more of the social worker avenue, which we see works so well.
Well, I mean, like, think about it this way. This is basically, to sum it up, please go and read it, but basically what they're doing is they say, hey, we will give you more funding. It's a bribe.
Mm-hmm.
We will give you more funding if you reduce the number of officers, post-certified officers that you have, and hire more people who are trained in social work to be your police. And they want you to go out to these certain areas. I have no idea how they plan on designating like what's going to happen, right? Because they want them to be proactive instead of reactive. I don't know how you, without, like, this isn't, what's that movie? Minority Report. This isn't Minority Report. Like, there's no way of knowing a crime is going to happen before it happens. So they want to basically discriminate people based upon whatever their situation is, go to them and say, hey, we think you may do something in the future.
It's called profiling.
We can't use that word, right? Or stereotypes.
Yes.
Anyway, go to these people beforehand and say, hey, based upon your track record, we think that you're getting ready to do something pretty soon, and we want to talk to you about it and sit down and, you know, make sure that you're okay mentally. What is this?
Yeah, it is a complete failure is what it is.
It kind of scares me, and we're going to talk to Buck later, but it's like before they give you the chip. You know what I mean?
I got to keep you away from him.
I know we spend too much time together.
People say I'm bad.
We spend too much time together.
But so other things that we're really seeing with this, and this is something that I picked up from a article that I was reading, is that you're really starting to see kind of the Senate pushing back, or not really pushing back, but from reading the article, it kind of made it sound like the Senate is trying to hold in their crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's so split right now. And they know that if they put forward any sort of controversial piece of legislation, or if there are any controversial votes, if the government funding gets cut and the government shuts down, or if they fail to fund the military, then whatever party is seemingly responsible for that will be punished in the midterms, specifically in the Senate. And with it being so close in the Senate, that's the last thing either party wants to do. So they're kind of holding in their crazy a little bit, or at least that's the way the article made it sound.
Which is so true, right? Because think about all the things that Kamala Harris and other senators have said that they're ready to do. The moment that, you know, they get back, if they're the majority, the reason why they aren't ready to pull the trigger on some of that craziness now is because they know in November the country has been watching. The country will make sure that they're going to pay for what we're going through right now. We're being punished because of their bad policies.
Yes, we're being punished because 6 years ago we voted in a man who was not the person that they wanted voted in, and now they have essentially put the pedal to the metal and turning us into a socialist country.
Yep. And I think you hit on that they didn't want in, that America wanted in, that America duly elected, but they didn't want it.
Yep. There have been multiple people in the Senate that said that they never wanted him, they never liked him, and they most certainly don't want to see him back again. So they're going to do what they have to try and keep that from happening. I do want to bring up, though, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, or mentioned it briefly, was that part of the reason, or part of one of the things that they're holding their crazy back on, is making sure that the government does not get defunded or shut down, because they want to pass this stopgap legislation to extend funding the government until December, rather than deal with the ramifications of them trying to pass a budget right now, and Americans seeing what's actually in this budget, and that would hurt them in the long run in the midterms. There's been an interesting development with this, though. Have you heard about what is coming on as a rider with this?
I haven't.
Stopgap. So remember the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and how that was passed because of some backroom trading deals with Senator Joe Manchin.
Mm-hmm.
So Manchin is now calling in his chips on this and is wanting to push through his rider and having the permitting application, or the permitting process, for the West Virginia natural gas pipeline to essentially be reduced. So they want to get rid of some of the permitting requirements and really streamline that process. So the senator from West Virginia gets that pipeline that's originating in his state and going out to Virginia.
So,
and that's being attached to the stopgap bill. There have been a lot of Republicans that have said, "Oh, really?
So you want to push fossil fuels? So you, a Democrat, want to push fossil fuels?"
Well, he's an independent.
Oh, okay, yeah. Anyway, yeah, okay. You whatever.
Well, it's what he says.
This is national politics.
Yes,
there's no such thing as an independent. Okay, that's like Bernie Sanders coming up here saying he was an independent. Okay,
I have to say Bernie Sanders.
Anyway, like you as an independent Democrat want to push forward a natural resources attachment to a stopgap bill to keep the government funded. What, like
a fossil fuel natural resource?
Like, again, with the hypocrisy, right? Oh, now let's just paint the picture, okay? I'm gonna look the camera in the eye and say, let's just paint the picture, because now that we've gotten to the point to where Democrats realize they're getting ready to lose the midterms, they want to fund fossil fuels. They're building the wall in Arizona, and Joe Biden is now coming up here and saying that he wants to fund police. What?
Well, they obviously saw that their policies were
completely off base.
Not just off base, but were an unequivocal failure and a detriment to our country as a whole. Wow. So now they're trying to do damage control and reversing course and coming back and telling us that, oh, well, we really didn't mean all of that back then. But this is where we're really at. Kind of like what Joe Biden actually just did earlier this week when he said COVID's over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. After he got it and he survived it and he needed to keep moving forward. Now COVID's over after you ruined millions of lives.
The pandemic is dead, according to Joe Biden. But
exact words.
Not so much to the people that would still profit from it. Specifically, the White House, Dr. Fauci. So, in saying that, one of the things that the White House is trying to do is they're trying to get $22 billion of additional funding for COVID relief pushed through the Congress in order to support some of the pandemic-related programs that they initiated. Well, pandemic's over. Why we need $22 billion in additional spending?
I mean, it goes back to summing up what we've been saying this entire time, but we're hypocrites and liars, and we don't love our country and all the things. We don't
care about people.
We don't care about people. All the demonizing things that they put on us. Mm-hmm. They now, in order to try to win someone's vote, like we told them that they were trying to do from the beginning, they were trying to scare you into getting a vote. House of Cards season 5, once again.
Yeah.
The Democrat couldn't win in the show. Those of you who haven't watched House Cards season 5, right? Frank knew he was going to lose the Republican who was the president at the time. So he then feared and used the fear model of a various situations to scare people into runoffs so that they could keep the majority. Here we are in a live TV show.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how a lot of these things are coming true before our eyes when they were meant to be kind of the worst case models of what's going on in our political spectrums.
I'm at a loss of words.
So another part of this, so although he claims that he in no way is political himself, but he cries that everything that he works for and everything he does has been so politicized, and Dr. Fauci is who I'm speaking about. But he came back and he actually corrected Biden and said, "Oh, no, wait, we're not over yet. You still got another 2 years, and I'm not retiring until, after December. So let's extend and wait at least till then and see what's going to happen with this." So we know for a fact that they're only using this as a political opportunity, just simply because they're still trying to push through funding on it, yet they claim it's over. And even Biden himself came back and walked back his COVID is dead proclamation as well. So he came back and said, "Oh, well, what I really meant to say was, I'm old and I had a dementia moment there for a moment." So
here's the thing, man, and here's the thing that really gets me. Yeah, I know. And what a charade this is, because we once again, like,
it's a good word to use.
That old saying of, people don't pay attention till it affects them, right? Here we go. And here they are. It's affecting them. It's in their face. They can't get what they want done. Like no one should, you cannot believe them after this point. Because they have criticized, demonized, and ostracized people for the same thing that they are now going to try to stand behind. And then they want us to believe that if they get voted in again, that they won't come back to the model that they were using before.
Except in a
more aggressive way.
Yes, because they would have successfully pulled the blinders over the American public and told them one thing while doing another, and still got reelected into those offices while doing the absolute worst.
And I said this beforehand, there's nothing more dangerous than a term limit official, especially a president, in year 3 and in year 5 through 8.
Well, so it wouldn't be, they refer to those folks as lame ducks.
Yeah, but
I see what you're trying to do there.
Yeah, because it's the time points, right? Because here's the thing: if he's not reelected in 2024, they're gonna shove it down our throats. If he is reelected, and then it's gonna get even worse. Like, if we think it's bad now, imagine what happens if they win. If people don't get out and vote and they win the majority, they push through everything that they want done before in his first term, and then he's reelected. They'll come up with things that we haven't even thought of yet and shove it down our throats in his second term.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's why he can't have one.
Well, that is if he even has a second term, because
that's what
just recently came. He just recently came out and said he may not even be running because he doesn't have things lined up. Those are his words. We know differently on that, but that's
because
his words
it's not fair what they're doing to him, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
Well, it's definitely not right, and it's inhumane.
It's inhumane.
To quote a gentleman that we're going to be showing here in a minute. But
did you see did you see what he did at the one of the summits the other day? Like they had it. I can't remember exactly what summit it is. I'm gonna have to dig this up. But basically, what happened was Joe Biden gave a speech before world leaders, thanked them for thinking about it, and then he was lost. He was supposed to stay at the podium and talk and have a candor with someone, but then he walked to the end of the podium, started to try to stick out his hand, and then turned back around, and the person he was supposed to have a conversation with just started thanking him, and he just kind of stood there. That's unfair, y'all.
Yes,
that's unfair. You can't do politics aside. You can't do that to someone.
No, he is essentially an empty shell and a puppet that they've created. Stuck a wind-up key in his back, wound him up, and just let him trot on his merry way while they use the authority and power behind his office to destroy our country.
Sick.
Although I will say there is hope on the horizon in this regard, and that is because they just recently released something that has been teased about for the past several months, and that being the Republican caucus in the House, their legislative priorities and the principles that they're really wanting to push forward with, and it's been dubbed Commitment to America. Kind of brings back some Gingrich feelings in a sense.
Yeah.
So what they're wanting to do is really kind of focus and push on kitchen table issues and topics, the economy, inflation, jobs. You're looking at illegal immigration. Although I will say one of the major things that they are looking to do away with, one thing that I absolutely love and think that this should have been done a long time ago, they're going to ban proxy voting.
Good.
So you have to get up there and
you have to do it.
You have to do your job.
Like literally what you were elected to do.
You have to do the bare minimum of what you were sent into the office to do. They're actually going to say you have to at least do the minimum thing of what you were sent here to do.
And that gets us back to a structured session. There's no more of canceling session for a couple of weeks so that you can go do whatever you want to or go vacation.
Oh no, well, if Nancy Pelosi was still there, that would still happen. But thankfully, she's going to be the ambassador to Italy.
But you get what I'm saying, though. Like it's a model that's been going on regardless of party for a long time, and we got to get back to a structured order of things. And the only way to do that is we got to instill some rules again that says, hey, here's what you were here to do. Here's what the people elected you to do. Here's how we can kind of move forward. But you got to be here. You can't give it to someone and then hope that they vote in the way that you're supposed that your district wanted you to vote for.
So one of the things that and on this issue, I would actually put forward to the committee, to the study committee that's putting all these things together and release this, is in the rules package after the Republicans take back the majority in the House. In the rules package, they put in essentially minimum qualifications and standards as far as what the member is allowed to do in regard of missing votes and taking votes. If you miss more than, let's say, 3 unexcused votes, then they start taking money away from you.
Beautiful.
Start fining you because you're not there doing your job. And if you're not there doing your job, why are you being paid?
Beautiful. I mean, like, think about it. I'll put it this way. There's a certain, there's levels to things, right? We talk about it in pro athletes all the time. These are pro politicians. Let's just call it that way, right? Every other profession, if you are not upheld by the standards that are given to you, you are fined, disbarred, dismembered, penalized, suspended, something of that nature. It's set for in politics.
Yeah.
And it's time the parties are, because, and
they make money hand over fist.
We can go back to our whole philosophical debate, but there's still 2 parties right now. Right. And our parties have allowed for this jungleness to go on.
Because they don't want to be held to those standards themselves. Because I'll be honest with you, there are Republicans that are in office that have missed more than 3 votes because they were out fundraising, or they're at a dinner with lobbyists. They were napping in their offices.
But look, here's the thing, and I get schedules are tough, and when you're at a certain level, you got scheduled sleep. Okay, but here's the thing: if we set rules, they're going to look at all of that. You know what I mean? Because when you have to schedule sleep because your schedule is wild and you're flying all around the country to make sure things are in order, that's because there are certain rules that have been put in place. The rules will guide and allow for more things like that. They'll allow for you to be able to sleep like a normal human being, to be able to spend time with your family, to be able to fundraise, to be able to take care of things, because now your schedule is not so sporadic that you can't do those things.
Yes, and the biggest part of that is the fundraising, simply because of the fact that we have become such a political industry. Politics has become such an industry with raising money, not just for the politician or the person running for that office, but for the party as a whole that they are part of.
Yeah.
In addition to the dues that you're required to pay, You're also, if you want a good seat placement in any party that's in office, that's in the majority, you have to be one of the top fundraisers. You have to be an asset to that party. So in order to be rewarded, you have to bring in all of this extra money. So if you're not bringing in all this extra money, you're not going to get the seats in order to help out your constituents or what you were sent up there to do. So
it's crazy. Like some people can't even fathom what, like, you got to raise like 6 figures almost a week, a day, or something astronomical like that.
Well, some members, yes, they do. They are able to do that. Some members.
Well, what I mean by that is like that's what it is to like try to get at the top.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
To become leadership and to really be effective with all of that. Absolutely. You're looking at that being as a bare minimum weekly deal, if not monthly.
Yep.
And in some cases, depending on who you are, daily.
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's thousands of dollars a day, like
tens of thousands, actually.
You know, yeah. And then 6 figures a week, a month, depending on where you want to go, how fast, like you're projected inside of the party. Like it's not fair. And we need structure again.
Yeah, that would definitely be nice. So they've essentially they have put together 4 key tenets of what they are really pushing for, and what they want this commitment to really be focused around. And those 4 key tenets are government accountability, no brainer, national safety, of course. Who would have thought that should be something that
questionable? Be I know, right?
Required to put in there. Strong economic success. Again, why does that even need to be listed? And a future that is free. Those are the 4 tenets that are being pushed forward. I mean, those are kind of self-explanatory and almost to the point to where they really don't need to even be mentioned or put out. Or at least that's my mindset.
Well, they do now because of the fact of like how radical we've gone.
The exact point that I was getting to.
Yeah, and you know, like that's why they got to pay the piper now, because of the fact of like, look what they've done. They realize that they have now gone so far out in the field that no one is going to do it. And I'm proud of my party because for the first time we realized that it's time to be proactive and getting ready to take over, because usually this doesn't happen.
Yes, the last time I believe it was Gingrich that essentially did that.
That said, hey, let's go ahead and get ready because we need to be able to hit the ground running to make sure that we can actually bring America back
and try and reverse some of the just atrocious things that they have pushed through. And since they're in the House and controlling the purse strings, defund a lot of what they're doing, or what they've done. But as always, we like to remind our viewers to make sure that they like and share any of the content that we do produce and we put out on any of the social media platforms that you're viewing this on. Make sure you're also subscribing to our channel on these social media platforms. That way you'll stay up to date with everything that we have coming out there that we're producing. If you're able to, please also go to conservativetalk.org and hit that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and help us out with what you're able to, because all of our sponsors are how and why we're able to do this now.
Yep.
So please help us out there where you're able to with that. So one of the things that we had touched on, or that we had brought up, that we were going to talk about, and that was
the witch hunt.
Yes, a Democrat sheriff actually got, and this is still up. The video is still up. It's still on their Facebook page. Got on TV
because they're proud of it.
Yeah. Obviously, they don't understand with it. They can't understand what they've done with this, because if they actually understood what they did with this, then it would have been removed moments after it had even gone up. So what we're talking about is there is a Democrat sheriff that has opened up a criminal investigation into he didn't name any names, but he said, "Oh, y'all know who I'm talking about," and in reference to what the investigation involved. But opened it up into Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former high school teacher of mine. So Governor DeSantis, if you are listening to this and it does come across to you, you are more than welcome to come on your old student show.
love to have
we
you.
would love to have you on.
I'll throw you a banquet too.
Willie, we will even give you, I guess you could say, your defense and lay out a groundwork for a defense that you can use on this.
Yeah. I mean, let's just get into it.
Yes. So he's opened up this investigation into Governor Ron DeSantis and what they're investigating or looking into. Ron DeSantis has been sending migrants to our nation's or our country's most wealthy, or it's the wealthiest town in the country.
Yeah,
and it's the wealthiest town, I believe, in the Western Hemisphere. Actually,
that's interesting and makes sense. And it all starts with, and here's how much fishing and how much of a witch hunt this is. They want to go down to the consent form. You know, they say, oh, there's errors in the consent form that say that this is a trafficking issue because they had them consent to things and lied, or the presumption of lying, right?
Well, the sheriff doesn't even know what they're investigating as far as the laws, local, state, or federal. So let's take a look at what this let's call him what he is, this moron said on public TV.
For what I believe to be nothing more than political posturing to make a point.
So he's complaining about this going on, and deeming it or putting it out as a political stunt or political posturing, to nothing more than to gain political points in the national mindset.
I've never seen a sheriff get up here and do this. This goes back to what
Comey did,
right?
Most certainly wouldn't.
Well, this goes back to what Comey did, right? Like,
yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point.
Interview by a law enforcement officer at the highest level, a constitutional officer, because they had their own political pun that they wanted to spin.
Yes. It's funny how he says that this is nothing more than a political stunt, essentially. Well, that's what he said. It's political stunt, political posturing. But that's exactly what he's doing with this interview. This creating of this criminal investigation is nothing more than political posturing. That's all it is.
Yeah, because this is not how it works.
So you'll see here in some of the other clips that we have that he actually says that they have no actual basis for launching this investigation at all.
Well, look, we all know that during a political campaign, things can get nasty, things can get out of hand. But when you're playing with human lives of people that are already in a desperate situation, people that again, had every right to be where they were, but were lured under false pretenses, that does tend to bother me quite a bit.
So it tends to bother him when people are lured into situations that are desperate, that are looking for a better opportunity, people that he claims have a legal right to be there, but they're illegal immigrants. So how's that legal? That's another tricky, interesting question. But what about those illegal immigrants?
Look, before we even go there, okay, I don't know a soul on this planet who says, hey, I'm gonna give you a free bus trip to Florida and a free plane ride to Martha's Vineyard, who comes from statute where they'll never see these places. Illegal citizen, anything, who ain't gonna take it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's like saying, hey, I got you a free trip across the country to a country you've never been to. You know what I mean? Like, all you got to do is sign this form. 90% of the people are going to do it. And it doesn't have anything to do with the form or whether it's a political pun or anything of that nature. They're going to do it because it's, you know what I mean? It's an opportunity.
Yes. Kind of like the opportunity what these 53 illegal immigrants were promised when they got onto this bus or this transfer truck.
This is heinous.
That died in the same county, in the same city where the sheriff is overseeing things.
You gotta be kidding me. Like, here's one thing that I didn't make the connection of earlier, is that this sheriff is been there for both incidences, right? So this, and I'm pretty sure we talked about this on a previous show. This is one of the most heinous things I've ever seen.
Yes.
as to where someone rounded up a bunch of illegal immigrants, put them in the back of their 18-wheeler, and I mean, it's a heinous crime scene. Go back and look at it.
Well, they weren't illegal immigrants at the time. They were migrants at the time because they had not crossed over our border illegally. They crossed over illegally in the back of that truck. Once they made it across our border and got up to the county where San Antonio is, where the sheriff is.
The thing. So that's part of it too, right? So we don't even necessarily know. That's a good point. We don't necessarily know if these people even were trying to come here. They just could have been citizens of Mexico. They just could have been trafficked.
Mm-hmm.
Because these are just individuals who were in Mexico on this border area, and they were put into the back of a truck and then brought into the United States. That's a very good point.
So he's concerned
that makes this interview even worse for me.
Oh yes, well, he's concerned about human trafficking. Is one of the things that he brings up and that he says and really hits on a lot during the interview. But when actual potential human trafficking is going on, he doesn't care. I haven't heard the single thing about an investigation involving this.
Nothing.
Other than the fact that it happened, and now who knows? There was no press conference from him about this, or him saying that we're going to hunt this thing down. We're going to solve this. We are going to stop this. But when you have a Republican governor from Florida taking these illegal immigrants away from his socialist or his communist little county there, and then flying them to where Barack Obama has his little summer house.
This pisses me off.
Then it is human trafficking. He's going to fight and stop it.
Dude, this pisses me off because here we go again with something this serious that people are spinning into a political pun. We have an issue in this country when it comes to dehumanizing humans, whether they are babies, whether they are females, whether they're a minority, where they males, we do not value life anymore. We do not value life. And we are now using heinous acts like this and everything else as political puns. He wants to go after DeSantis for not harming anyone, moving them.
Yes.
But when trafficking literally comes through your door and they find it, we don't hear anything else about it.
No. So they're saying that they were lured there by promises of better life and all this other stuff. But that's exactly what that state, that county, and that city have put out there. They've actually passed statutes and don't enforce a lot of these laws and become sanctuary states, counties, and cities. They say, oh, we're very open and welcome to these illegal immigrants coming across our border. We'll help you out in any way we can. Well, when we actually bring them to them for them to help, because the resources are running extremely thin on these border towns and these border states, they freak out and call in the National Guard and have these illegal immigrants deported from their town within 48 hours.
See, here's the thing. Resourceful people are going to be resourceful. All you got to give is an opportunity. So if clearly there's some level of resourcefulness from anyone who crosses illegal. Now, I'm for immigration, right? Again, we've talked about this multiple times.
Legal immigration.
There needs to be legal immigration, and if you don't like the way it's done, then we got to revamp the policy, right? Think of the legal method to do it. Get in office and do your job.
Mm-hmm.
So these people that's the same opportunity. Where they're going to cross the border, you're going to put them on a plane. It's the same opportunity. They're not thinking anything about that. But damn a consent form. Okay. The problem is that when you create policies that says, oh, I'm not going to enforce this law over this law, you are now enticing people to break the law.
Yep.
You're enticing them to start this process.
That's a very good point.
That already puts them in a bad situation from the get-go.
So it's not only just Joe Biden and his administration that is saying that's destroyed our border and has opened it wide open for anybody to come across. It's the cities, the towns, and the states and the counties that are also incentivizing this by becoming these safe havens and these opportunity zones or these opportunity areas for these illegal immigrants to come in and get a lot of these government funded, taxpayer funded programs.
Well, it's like it's like candidates for attorney general, right, on the Democratic ticket, who come out here and say, "Oh, well, I have a list of laws that I'm not going to prosecute or enforce."
Mm.
You don't have that option. That's not your job. That's not what we elect you to do. Cities, counties, everyone, they don't have an option in this. You're just going to come out here and nitpick what laws you're going to enforce because it fits your political plan. That disgusts me.
Yet, it's not a political stance or a ploy in their minds,
because it fits their mind. I'm so sick of this.
Well, think of this. One of the shows we've done earlier, you had the Biden administration flying these illegal immigrants all over the country in the dead of night,
doing the same thing.
Exactly. Except where they're being taken is nowhere near as nice as where the governor sent them.
They're taking it. See, and that, again, I feel like we're making full circle, right? Hypocrisy. We showed where they were flying them in the middle of the night. That's literally one of the first times we did a video on the show. They were flying them in the middle of the night. They were then busing them to cities so that they could have a Democratic vote. We don't even know if they signed a consent form. We don't even know if these people actually were told or anything that if they go there and they take this little packet with them, that they can vote however they want to, or if they want them to vote a certain way or anything like that. But once a Republican does it, it's a problem.
Absolutely. So here's another thing that this brain dead idiot had to say.
Or was this strictly a predatory measure, somebody coming and preying upon people that are here minding their own business and are here legally, not bothering a soul, but somebody saw fit to come from another state, hunt them down, prey upon them, and then take advantage of their desperate situation just for the sake of political theater, just for the sake of making some sort of a statement, and putting people's lives in danger? I believe people need to be held accountable for it to the extent possible.
Oh, this.
Well, Mr. Sheriff,
he didn't know any of that.
I do believe that there will be some accountability held with this, and hopefully it will be during your next election.
Absolutely. Like, he didn't know any of that. He didn't know if they were legal. He didn't know if they're illegal. Like, he hasn't known.
They were here legally. How are they here legally? They literally broke the law to come here.
Dude, it's one of those things.
Minding their own business.
I just can't get over it. I can't get over the fact that we have someone who was elected who now when's he up for re-election? It's probably soon. That's probably why he's getting ready to do this.
Most likely.
Because he's a constitutional officer, right? If they run on the same cycle.
This year, it'll be 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years from now. Because he probably just got in there, and that's why he's trying to do this, because he needs to stay face for a little while.
Yep.
This is ridiculous.
So this is another little snippet of this just terrible speech.
Just jackwagon.
At this point, I'm not able to definitively say here's the statute that they broke, either federal, state, or local. But what I can tell you is it's wrong. Just from a human rights perspective, what was done to these folks is wrong.
So we don't know if a law was broken, or if a rule was broken, or if anything was broken. But in my opinion, it was wrong. So we're going to launch a criminal investigation.
That's the problem in America right now.
We have politicized and weaponized our
opinions.
not just the opinions, but our legal and our law enforcement on multiple levels.
Based upon our opinions.
Yes,
that's what they're doing.
Political ideology.
That's what they're doing. They have now taken this is what we are supposed to fight against, to where someone who disagrees with our opinion takes the law into their own hands, and they now will want to ruin someone's life because they don't like the way that someone thinks.
Exactly.
That is the complete opposite of what America is supposed to be.
Yes. I'm pissed. Area of governance, the law enforcement, and like what Josh was talking about earlier, the judicial system, those are two areas of governance that are supposed to be 100% without any sort of political leaning, just simply because they are there to uphold and protect the laws that the political organizations and institutions pass and put into place. They are there in a means to follow what the political bodies put in place, not to pick and choose where they want or where they're going to enforce all of these issues, where they're going to hold somebody accountable, where they're going to allow somebody to slide through, they're going to release them on cashless bail. And
we've done this.
It's supposed to be, yes, absolutely. It's supposed to be the institution, the bodies that have no, like you said, they're blind. They're not supposed to see one way or the other. It's supposed to follow the law and do what the law says.
We traded privacy for a false sense of security, and now it's the opinions of others that justify or decide what is fair and what is not unjust, and that's not the law.
Nope, not at all.
The law is to be blind.
Yes. So we've got one more clip here that we want to run as well.
From now on out, we're hoping to talk to some of these victims and witnesses firsthand to find out what was said, what was done, how were you lured into this, and then the full extent of how they were placed in harm's way.
So from a legal perspective and in that regard, it's interesting what he said there. They have not spoken
to anyone
with anyone that they are labeling and that they are referring to as victims. So you cannot have a victim without somebody first reporting that a crime has been committed.
I don't know how you give me
and
a free
in
chip
order
victim.
for a crime to have been committed, you have to be aware of a law, a statute, or a rule that has been broken, of which the sheriff admitted in saying, we have no idea. I can't tell you what that is, but yet we're still going to call them victims.
He pulled up a full video of a witch hunt. Now, I mean, look, here's the thing. You give me a free trip and I'm resourceful enough to make sure I'm going to survive. Like you have to have a self-consciousness enough to know that if I get on, if I go anywhere that I don't know where I'm going, like, you know what I mean? You got to be comfortable with it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's like when you go down to Florida with no money, you know what I mean? Like you have to know in your head that you're either going to have to get a job, you're going to do something. If you ever want to go home, or you're going to live there, you know, because
are you going to die there?
Or you're going to die there, like one or the other, you know, like there's no way anybody who you can't call them victims. They willingly got on there, whether illegal, whether they're citizens, whatever happened, they chose to get on that bus. They chose to get on that plane. And I don't care if you told me it was a free trip or not, I took the risk.
Whether you tell them that when they get off, they're going to be handed $1 million, they still made the decision to get on that plane.
Made decision. And you know what I mean? Like some things are too good to be true. If you I don't care who you are. That's just the reality. I don't care who you are. You tell me something that's too good to be true. 9 times out of 10 it's too good to be true. I'm not going to believe you. I might do it anyway. You know what I mean? Because I may be looking for an adventure. I might not have anything else better to do, but there's no way that you can call these people victims.
No.
When you don't know if there was ever a law broken, if you have no idea if there was any statute that falls up under this, and you haven't spoken to anyone.
Exactly.
And here's the other thing. Okay. How you going to speak to him? How you going to speak to him?
So
you going to go find them? You don't even know who they are.
Well, no, there's several of them that have gotten together and hired, or they've obtained legal representation. And that's who the sheriff is communicating through the attorneys.
So through the attorneys.
Yes.
And this is America, where I can sue you if my coffee's too hot, so I make $1. But before I'm not even going to get into that. How do we know that these attorneys didn't go to them?
Oh, they absolutely did.
So here's another thing, right? It's the same situation. Only difference is you now want to use these people for your own political gain, whereas you were saying that they were used for a different political gain.
Yep. Yeah. So these attorneys are being paid for by NGOs that are backed, literally been paid millions of dollars from Soros, who has funded organizations and nonprofits that have given these other organizations grants. That's how they're being paid to do this.
So yeah, that makes sense, right? Because the same organizations that are probably bringing you SEGs and enforcing these, you know, overarching social environmental policies on companies to give social credit are probably now trying to extend that their own way. Once again, makes sense.
Yes.
Same game.
They say witch hunts or political witch hunts they're just conspiracy theories. They're just way out there. They're not real. We literally have a living example of what that is.
openly admitted it.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing that gets me. Like, he on camera says, I have no idea what law I'm going to enforce or go after. It's not even written yet.
Mm-hmm.
Who does what? That's not law enforcement.
No. We'll have to reach out to our sheriff and see what his thoughts are on this. Or even better yet, we can reach out to a sheriff that has been directly affected by this in Dade County.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And see if we can get him to come on. But as always, we like to remind all of our viewers to make sure that they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the content that they come across. It helps us to get higher in the news feed and allows for our content to be viewed by a wider range of audiences. Make sure you're also hitting the subscribe button. That way you can stay up to date on any of the productions that we put out. You'll never miss any of our content, and you'll always be able to see Jamie's loving face. Also, make sure you're going to conservativestalk.org, and if you're able to, hit the sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and help us out with what you're able to, because it is because of our sponsors that we are able to continue to bring these shows and these episodes to you. So, Jamie, let's look at what we were wanting to talk about next, and that being that threats to democracy has become one of the highest polling concerns in the 2022 midterms. Threats to democracy. Does that ring a bell of who really put that out there and made that a large national kind of saying?
I think so.
So, as many, I'm pretty sure everyone's aware, that's Joe Biden's little catch-all phrase for any MAGA supporters or anybody who, anybody who's part of the Republican Party. That's his catch-all, is threats to democracy. If you're not a Democrat voter, you're a threat to democracy, because MAGA voters are those who are what he deems as MAGA voters are people who support the Make America Great Again policies. And Make America Great Again policies are what Republicans and conservatives push for, whether you be moderate or you be what has been deemed or coined as ultra MAGA.
You know what I find interesting, right? I got to see how this polling was done for some of these, because one thing that I find interesting is how a lot of Republicans who were in these topsy-turvy districts are gaining in the poll.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have a hard time trusting some polls, because you tell me, if I see on a poll, depending on how it's worded, and you say threat to democracy, I'm like, yeah, because the policies the left's do it. That's a major concern for me. I'm gonna circle the big five.
Actually, just about to bring that up. Yeah, that I think that they really that this was orchestrated in a way that really pushed and promoted Joe Biden's rhetorics, while ensnaring conservatives and Republicans behind the same thing, because we just went through a massive movement because we were concerned that of concerns of threats to our democracy via some of the voting issues.
Yeah.
So that was a massive Republican movement. But now on the flip side of that coin, Democrats are saying that because Republicans were instituting some of these laws to make elections more secure, that now they are threats to democracy. It's kind of a catch-all there.
It's the multiverse. You know what I mean? It's the multiverse. Because if you're like far left, you're like, oh. If you're far right, you're like, what are they doing? Right. But like when you look at it, there is the 68% that's in the middle that says, hey, we are now worried about democracy because where the left is going is too far. They're going too far. And this is why you're seeing that last wave of we'll call them more left moderate Republicans, right? Who did their thing with Joe, can't ignore it, are shifting back. Yep. And going, hey, you know what? Like, I made a mistake. I made a major mistake. They lied to me. I bit into the apple, and it's time to get back. It's time to take our country back. It's time to put our country first.
Essentially, well, it sounds a lot like what America First policies are all about.
Yeah.
But yet, we're the threats to democracy.
I was talking to someone the other day, and he summed it up best for me. They can say whatever they want to in their commercials. They can come out here on TV and say whatever they want to about they're now going to fund the police and everything else. Your voting record. You have already served us for 2 years, and your voting record does not prove that what you're trying to tell me now, a month before the election, is what you actually stand for.
Yep.
That in itself is all we as Americans need to hear.
True. But at the same time, Americans have to be in tuned enough to the political landscape in the world in order to be able to receive that message of what their voting record is. And unfortunately, the vast majority of Americans just aren't.
This is true. But, here, and I'm just going to say it, sometimes this has always been the problem of the left. They do all this stuff way too early, too fast. Because I promise you, it's so funny how I'll even say some of my left-leaning acquaintances will come out here and be like, if I see a certain ad from someone in their party again, I'm going to vote for the other guy. I can't tell you how many times I've been told that.
Before I got involved with this, I can't tell how many times I said that.
Because like people who aren't in tune, people who don't know what's going on, they will get drowned out by ads.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually the left who tries to do this. They think they're going to use the same subliminal messaging that they always try to do, or what worked, and when they infiltrate schools, because you see it, right? Raymond Ford talks about it all the time. It's amazing to me how in these cycles Republicans come out, because we're like, look, clearly you wouldn't be pushing a message on me that hard if I was trying to tell you the truth. You would just say the truth and keep moving.
Hmm? Yeah, no, you're right. So that whole threat to democracy deal is becoming something that we had originally said was going to be dangerous. I'm not sure if you've heard about what happened in North Dakota involving the man who ran down an 18-year-old kid and killed him in his car because he was what the murderer described, the confessed murderer described as a threat, because he was a ultra conservative or an ultra MAGA supporter.
You're making me scared.
Yeah. The guy was he was either in his late 40s or late 50s, ran down an 18-year-old kid in his vehicle, ran him over, killed him, told law enforcement why he did it, and is now, because he's obtained legal counsel, just shut up. And what he told law enforcement, it was because he's an ultra conservative and he's a threat to our country, so I killed him. An 18-year-old kid.
Where'd my country go?
You want to know the really interesting part about that? He got out of jail on a $50,000 bond.
This is awful.
A confessed murderer is now walking free because the judge set a $50,000 bond.
And they held a kid for years because he was shooting people because he shot somebody who was jumping him. People ganged up on him, beat him up, and he shot him defending himself. But here goes someone who killed an 18-year-old kid because he thought he knew what his political beliefs were, and he gets bond.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've got people who are being detained right now in D.C. and the gulag up there because of what happened in 2021 on January 6th, who have been denied bond. Yet none of them killed anybody, and none of them were violent in any nature. But yet this guy who runs this kid down because political disagreements and intentionally killed him, gets released on bond for $50,000.
It makes me want to cry, man. That's awful.
Mm-hmm. That's what this Joe Biden rhetoric is really pushing. And the fact that it is trending or it is one of the leading issues across the country and is showing up in polling across the country is really concerning.
We no longer value life, man.
Mm-hmm. It's actually number 2 in Georgia right now. Number 2 highest polling midterm issue.
Well, that's because in Georgia, we really are scared. We're worried about what Stacey and everybody else is going to do.
Mm-hmm. I believe it was number 1 in Wisconsin.
That's sad, man. That's sad. We no longer value life.
But on a lighter note, now that we've depressed everybody,
no more Facebook jail.
No, well, before we get to that, remember that you're making sure that you're hitting like and share on any of the content that we produce on any of the platforms that we produce it on. Make sure you're also subscribing to any of our platforms that you come across or in our channels on any of these platforms. And if you're able to, please go to our website at conservativetalk.org and hit the sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and help us out with what you're able to, because all of it goes a long way into really helping us to be able to expand this and make it much better. So what Jamie just jumped the gun on.
Okay.
He was looking for that feel good. I understand.
Yeah, but like, look, hey, I no longer have to worry about going to Facebook jail.
Well, if you're in Texas, you don't.
Yeah, I can change my IP address.
Yeah, that's right. You can technically could. So what we're talking about here is a federal court just ruled that big tech does not have First Amendment protections when it comes to censoring political thought and opinions. So we all know, because they've admitted it, that Google, Meta, Twitter, YouTube, they all crack down and push political ideologies and leanings a lot further just because the algorithms that they have than any sort of Republican mindset. So we know that they do this. Well, Texas passed a law that said that's illegal. You can't do this. Interestingly enough, Florida passed a comparable law that was struck down. So you're looking at 2 circuits at the federal level. When you have 2 different appellate circuits that issue conflicting opinions, the likelihood that the Supreme Court is then going to pick it up and put a national ruling out on it is significantly higher. So this issue is likely to be held or to be going before the Supreme Court as to whether or not big tech has the First Amendment right to suppress political speech.
That's interesting. And I honestly, it's about time, really, because we've had this debate for a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
Politics has been kicked off of platforms. We've seen to where people, just because based on their opinion, even when Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Meta, came out in a testimony and said, "Hey, look, these aren't facts. These are just the opinions that we embody." And so we have created these fact checkers to go out and suppress things that are on our opinion. That's like, there's a synopsis of what he said.
Yep.
And so when you look at that being the model across big tech, and you look at the fact that, we've said this multiple times, and which is part of the reason why we create the show. If that's what they're going to do, fine. We're going to go create our own networks, our own brands, and our own platforms. And it's amazing how far one has come and how backwards the other one is going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's terrifying to think that something that something that humanity as a whole now has become so reliant on, social media, in any sort of big tech industry, any sort of information receiving, giving, any platform along that area, that anything along that mindset, the fact that they have an ability or the perceived ability to send one ideology or one thought over another is scary in of itself, because if we're so heavily reliant on these companies and these these organizations, and they're able to, because of what they claim as First Amendment protections, suppress the free speech or the communal area of speech, then what's to stop them from becoming disinformation platforms in of themselves? See, that's something that you don't really hear a lot from folks. You hear that they are trying to suppress this disinformation, or trying to suppress disinformation, trying to keep information that is being posted and shared and spread around everywhere, trying to keep it right, accurate, and true, or in their leanings mindset, right, accurate, and true. But at what point does that become disinformation in of itself? Because some of the opinions and leanings and thoughts that they have aren't accurate, and
because they refuse to look at the whole. They refuse to look at
Exactly.
the whole spectrum. Yep.
So at what point does that become disinformation of itself?
Well, you see it all the time. You see there are certain liberals out there who immediately, once they know your political view, they dismiss everything that you have to say.
Oh, yes.
Regardless of whatever it is, even though that they have not looked at it from another perspective, they may not even have all the information that you have. Like, they think that you're one thing versus another, when all anyone is ever trying to do is say, hey, look at the whole thing. I don't think anyone is so closed-minded that they are not willing to just completely forego any information that's gone to, until we got to recent times,
Cognitive dissonance, my friend.
Yeah. Like, at its finest, like, look at what's going on. Like, we have now, and I still go back to the fact that once we allow for the cord cutting and people to only receive the information that reinstills what they believe, we forced ourselves in this corner.
Oh, yes. I agree with you. But that's also the reason why we concur with the ruling in this case and sentence Facebook jail to a lifetime sentence of Facebook jail. Jamie has dropped the gavel. So with that, we always like, well, so with that, we have come to that inevitable part of everything in life.
The
and
worst
that is
time
the
of the
conclusion.
week, when we have to stop.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that you are liking and sharing any of the content that we produce and put out on any of the platforms. Make sure you're also subscribing to any of our channels that you run across. That way you can stay up to date with any of the productions that we do produce and put out there, and you never miss a moment of Jamie's wonderful smiling face.
Justin's
and
nice jokes.
Make sure you're going to our website if you're able to, at conservativestalk.org, and hitting the sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner, and helping us out if you're able to. Every little bit that goes right back into the show, it really helps us to be able to bring you more of these productions and continue to make more of these and make it better, make it wider reaching, and to have a better quality show and production that we can bring to you for your enjoyment and satisfaction.
Yeah.
We also want to say, reiterate and say major thank you to Net News Network and to Veterans Voice and Veterans for America First. They are our new affiliates. They are carrying our new productions. Well, Net News has for a while. Veterans Voice is their newer affiliate. They're how we're going to be able to reach a wider audience, but that's also something that we need help with in our sponsorships as well. But again, thank you to them. So let's go ahead and do your favorite part.
Yes. 45 days until we beat Stacey Abrams.
You know,
so it's
on November
8th.
Well,
9th.
On December 22nd, I'm making a prediction.
Yeah, that's true.
When we no longer have to say Stacey Abrams for at least, I'm thinking, a year and a half, I will be incredibly happy.
What if she thinks it's rigged again? I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Let's end the show.
Well, she's going to. There's no question about that.
Because here we go again.
Exactly. I mean, it worked out so well for her the last time.
Hey, she said her election was stolen last time, and we got ridiculed. So we'll see.
We will. But as always, thank you for tuning in, and we will see y'all next week.
See you soon.